Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for being here today. I'm Frank Walsh. I'm the Township Manager. I've been with the Township since May 8th of 2013. To my right is Chief Dave Hall, the supervisor of our board, Ron Styka, and to my far right over here is the rest of our Township board. They're all 7 of them are here. I want to start, first of all, with the most important reason we're here, and that's to apologize on behalf of the community, our police department, to you, Brianna. We failed you, we let you down, and you don't know how sorry. I know we've had a lot of private conversations, private apologies, but we felt this needed to be done in public because what happened to you is in public. And thank you for being here. I also want to apologize to Ellen, your mother. Your mom has been through a lot. Your brother, Matt, and your husband, you've all been through a lot. And we're sorry for that. I want to go back to 17 months ago, September 16th of 2016. We were notified by the Michigan State University of a potential case involving Nasser. The story had just broken the Indianapolis Star. It was a week old. And we were notified that we may have a case involved in 2004. We were immediately told by the Ames County Prosecutor's Office, do not release the report. We were prohibited from releasing the report. And shortly thereafter, we were told the same thing. As the case grew and the number of survivors grew, we were told the same thing by the Michigan Attorney General's office. We were prohibited from releasing the report. We understand why. We were told that we could jeopardize the prosecution of Nassar if we released the report. Certainly we did not want to do that. That's why we've been silent. We've been criticized for being silent for the last 17 months, and trust me, there were times we wanted to go forward and reach out to Brianne. We followed their direction. We were told to do that until after the sentencing. We decided not to wait. We decided to act. And I'm glad we did. It's one of the best decisions we've made. On Friday, January 19th at 4 o'clock, we made a phone call to Brianne. We didn't know what to expect. It was a very emotional conversation that lasted probably 30 to 40 minutes. And during that conversation, the one reason we called was to say, we're coming tomorrow to Seattle. I don't care that the case isn't over. It was time to come and apologize and start to make things right. During that conversation, we learned that Brianne was interested in coming back here and trying to work out a way to come back and face Nassar along with the other, at that time, 150 survivors. We now know that that is over 250 survivors and growing. Brianne accepted our offer, and on Sunday, 2 days later, on the 21st, contacted me in the morning and said, I'm coming, I'll be there tonight. And we talked about meeting the next day. We met on Monday, the 22nd at noon. The healing continued. We met with her brother, Matt, her mom, Ellen, Chief and I, and her attorney, Stephen Drew. And I just want to say one thing about Mr. Drew. He's been very cooperative. He's worked with us, and we've developed a relationship with him as well. He's been very fair and compassionate with us, and I appreciate that, Mr. Drew. Following that meeting on noon on the 22nd, we talked about Brianne. She's going to testify and give a victim statement in front of Judge Aquilina the next day. She contacted me on noon on Tuesday and said, I'm going to do it. I was very proud of her. That's not easy to do. Chief and I rushed down to the courthouse. We were there at 1 o'clock. There were 2 seats open next to her family. I can't begin to tell you how difficult the courtroom was. For those of you that weren't there, to see the victims, The survivors, it was something I'll never forget. We listened to Brianne provide her victim statement. Excuse me. I'll never forget the embrace we shared after her testimony, something I'll never forget. And the conversation with her mom right afterwards in the hallway. Meeting Brianne has really touched my life. This sounds kind of strange, but I'm thankful I had that opportunity. Following the courtroom, which was on Tuesday, we contacted the AG's office and said, we want to be able to release the report. We need to. It was time. It was past time. We would not jeopardize the prosecution, but the sentencing was over. On Monday, just 72 hours ago, we were given the ability to release the report. We released it within 48 hours of being told that we were allowed to do so. The reason we're here today on Thursday is because two reasons. It meets Brianne's schedule, and we would not hold this at such a time when any of the survivors were testifying in Judge Cunningham's court. And we understood there was going to be no courtroom involving Nassar today. This is why we're here on Thursday. We know we can be better. We will be better. And we are sorry that we were manipulated and deceived back in 2004. To that end, our focus is on looking forward and getting better. What positive can come out of this? Let's be genuine, authentic, and transparent, and not a cold and stubborn response to the survivors. We've been talking to Brianne over the last few days. Chief and I have been working on some initiatives going back, months back, about what we could do to make this better. Chief's going to talk about those in a minute. But one of the outcomes that I'm just delighted about is Brianne's own idea. Brianne's idea that she wants to come here over the next course of the year and work with our department, work with the officer who took the report in 2004, and develop a community-wide outreach program regarding criminal sexual conduct. The chief will talk more about that. And our other initiatives, that's not all we're going to do. We're going to be better. We let you down, Brianne. And the outcome of that is that we're all going to be better. This has touched me personally in ways you'll never know. But I can tell you that if it's the last thing I do in Meridian Township, we're going to work with Brianne, and we're going to become better in the community, and we're going to do things for many, many folks. I'm expecting Chief Hall to follow through on the initiatives in 2018, and I know he will. And we're going to work closely with you, Brianne. And we're going to do some great things in this community. At this time, I'd like Chief Hall to come up and talk about those initiatives and the program that Brianne has herself come up with. And at that time, we'll ask Brianne if she has any statements to make, and then we'll take your questions. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. As you can see, it's a very emotional situation for us. I remember the Friday conversation the manager talked about. I'll never forget it. It was almost like at 4 o'clock, this was the right thing to do. We had to give her a call. And as our fortune, as it would happen, she answered, I think on the second or third ring, just awfully quick, and I was thankful for that. Because it was an apology that needed to be given. It was a private conversation that we talked to her, and you know, it wasn't long that it was, we recognized the fact that it was sort of a floodgate opening. You knew that the apology had already started to make an impact, and we're thankful for that. We're thankful she received her call when she found out who it was. But it was a situation that I'll never forget. We met her the following Monday. Mother, her brother Matt, and Brianne. And that was a second apology. The manager and I apologized, and it was nice to meet Brianne and get to know her a little bit better, and extend another apology. We knew that we had to apologize to the public and apologize to Brianne again. You know, I'd like personally to think that one apology is enough and that everything is better, but that's not the case. That's not the case. I think I could apologize every day of the rest of my life, and it just, first of all, it would be truly meant. But I think the apology for me was a sort of a healing moment as well. That Brianne showed us some grace, and I appreciate that. We are going to do some initiatives, 3 initiatives specifically. The first initiative is more training. We're going to train our 39 police officers. We're going to include our civilian staff, and we're going to do more training. It's going to be in our training plan, annual training. And we're going to talk about good investigations, and we're going to talk about survivors and their needs. It's going to include much more than that, but that's a snapshot of it. We plan to have people from outside the department do the training. But you know, one thing I asked Brianne the other day is if she would consider doing a video for the training about her story. We think that would be a good addition, and it would bring the training close to home, and we appreciate the fact that she consented to do that, so that's great. The second initiative is I've given the Assistant Chief directions to go through all of our CSC reports, starting the year 2000 through 2018. That's been started. We're approximately halfway through. There's more work to be done. But we had a particular focus on 2004 to halfway through 2006, where we looked at then Officer Andrew McCready's reports to make sure that he didn't miss anything in other reports. And that if they should have gone down to the prosecutor's office, that they were. He investigated 14 reports during that period of time, and they were all in order, except for Brianne's. The third initiative is that Brianne, and the manager talked a little bit about this, at Brianne's request and encouragement, she wanted to help develop training, community outreach, community-wide, and this training would help youth and children understand CSCs and how to report them to authorities. We've asked Sergeant McCready to be involved in that. He is going to be. He's going to take a leadership role in that on behalf of the department. We're looking for that, and that will start later, a few months from now. A couple of points I want to make. The first point is that we have brought on board back in 2007 Becky Payne. And Becky Payne came to us from Washington, D.C., a transit authority. She came back to Michigan. She worked the road, developed some of Meridian's work ethic, and she was assigned about 2.5 years ago to investigations. She investigates all child CSC reports and all adult CSC reports. She comes with a great deal of experience, a great deal of training, and well respected in the community, and we appreciate that. We appreciate her work. Another point I'd like to make is that I'm stepping in, and all CSC reports that we produce will have a sign-off from me. I will look at every report, whether it goes to the prosecutor, whether it's a good report, just to make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing. And that starts immediately. Finally, one more apology. Apology to Ellen, mother, Matt, brother, to the community. We were deceived. We wish we had this one back. We want to do better. We want to show you that we do good work. We have great employees here. Great employees. They do good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Brianne, at this time, would you like to make any comments?
Yes, I have prepared something. Can I just start whenever?
You go right ahead.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. This has been a difficult 16 months as I have had to process the abuse I suffered at the hands of Larry Nassar, to raise the breadth of abuse on so many young women and children. When I reported my abuse to Meridian Township in 2004, I was disappointed that there were no charges filed. I felt like my complaint was ignored. I felt like I was ignored. I was told by police people.
Brianne, excuse me, I'm so sorry. We're having problems with the audio. Can you give us 1 second to adjust, please? I'm terribly sorry for the interruption. They're asking if we can start over one more time, please, Brianne. I'm terribly sorry.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. This has been a difficult 16 months as I have had to process the abuse I suffered at the hands of Larry Nassar and come to realize the breadth of his abuse on so many young children. When I reported my abuse to Meridian Township in 2004, I was disappointed that there were no charges filed. I felt like my complaint was ignored. I felt like I was ignored. I was told by people I trusted that this was a legitimate medical procedure. This caused me to question myself. For over a decade, I struggled with this. When I heard of the other allegations, the result of the lack of response to my in 2004. Several weeks ago, Frank Walsh and Chief Hall reached out to me. I was sitting at home with my newborn when I got the call. I immediately broke down as I apologized. This was a phone call I had been waiting almost 14 years for. I spoke to them for a while about the case. They offered to fly out to Seattle to formally apologize. I informed them that I had made a last-minute decision to attend sentencing and would be in Michigan in a few days. They offered to pay for my plane ticket so I could attend the sentencing and not have the financial burden that a last-minute ticket like this can cause. While in Michigan, I was able to meet with them along with my mom. They offered their sincerest apologies and were open to answer any and all questions we had. They discussed specific actions that they would be taking as a department to ensure this never happens again. Although this does not erase the pain that I have suffered for this process has been therapeutic for me and allowed me to take steps in letting go of the anger I had. I now hope to focus on the future and in making systematic changes to protect victims of sexual abuse. I appreciate the sincerity and kindness shown to me by Frank Walsh and Chief Hall. This has been instrumental in my healing process. I hope to continue a relationship with them together to give support to victims and provide educational resources regarding sexual abuse to the community. I would like to read some statistics regarding child sexual abuse. 1 in 4 girls and boys are sexually abused before the age of 18. Report their abuse. More than 90% of abusers are people who are know, love, and trust. An average serial child molester may have as many as 300 victims. Survivors of sexual abuse are 10 to 13 times more likely to attempt suicide. An estimated 40 million survivors of childhood sexual abuse exist in America. I realize how lucky I am to have been able to receive justice and face my abuser. Most people never get this opportunity. I fight today so that the next little girl who walks through the doors of this department or any department will not have to suffer for 14 years. I will not give up fighting until all victims of sexual abuse receive justice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brianne. Thank you. Those words are very, 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 very powerful. At this time, I know there's a microphone going around which we need to use for questions that you may have. And I'd ask you direct all the questions as far as the township to me, and I'll decide who I'd like to respond to that, and if you have any questions for Brianne. So if you could also identify your name and who you're with, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Jason Colthorpe, Channel 4 News, Detroit. The first question might be for the chief. When it came to Detective McCready, did he consult anyone before signing off on the report? Did he consult a doctor? Did he consult any other officers? If not, why not? And the follow-up is, why isn't he here, and how is he dealing with all of this?
He's remorseful. He has apologized. He's reached out to Brianne and apologized, and it was a private conversation that I believe went well, and I think he's passed on to me. He felt it went well. The first part of the
Did he consult
that was the downfall, one of the downfalls of the investigation. It should have been passed on to another expert, and it wasn't.
Next.
Jessica Dutnak, Fox 2 in Detroit. Probably for the chief. Can you take us through the steps of the investigation? I understand there was a PowerPoint involved. What was sort of, I guess, what he considered the deciding factor of moving forward or not?
The road patrol officer took the report. It was within a short period of time passed on to investigations. He interviewed Brianne, and then Nasser came in and was interviewed. Materials were presented to him that he felt were appropriate techniques from a physician. And he was wrong, he was deceived. At that point in time, it should have immediately been taken down to the prosecutor's office, and it wasn't. Thank you.
Next.
Sarah Yeager, NBC 25 and Fox 66 in Flint. Where did this incident happen that it was reported to Meridian Township? Was it at an MSU facility or was that another medical facility?
It was Hannah Boulevard off of Hagedorn Road, doctor's office there.
MSU Sports Medicine, to be exact. Next.
Jim Kurtzner with Channel 7 in Detroit. I have a copy of the report as released with redactions. Chief, maybe these are directed at him because these are procedural questions. Was this report and this investigation, did it go through a check and balance? Did this detective act on his own? I see some initials throughout this report. Other people in this department who had a role in this, but was his work ever double checked? Was he ever questioned? Was there a check and balance? You say it never went to the prosecutor. Were they even consulted? Were they called? Were they brought into this conversation? Or was the department decision made here and only by this detective to drop this case?
The 13, 14 years that have passed by has an impact of how things have gone, remembering-wise. But there would have been a sergeant in investigations. The sergeant is expected to review all reports, keep up with his investigators to make sure he knows what they're doing. It's presumed that that's exactly what happened, that there was a conversation there. But we have no documentation that verifies that. But the investigations supervisor would be the first contact.
And did this, was the prosecutor's office ever looped in on this? Were they consulted or they had no idea that this complaint had been filed and this investigation was
We have no documented information that they were contacted.
Okay, are these individuals still around, this supervisor, the sergeant? Have you called them? Have you inquired about their role in this and what they remember today?
Obviously, Andrew McCready is a sergeant in our department now. Al Spencer, who was supervising the investigators at that time, and the Lieutenant Russell Wolf, both are retired at this time. We have reached out, we've had conversations with them. That didn't lead us to anywhere other than what we know today.
So they have no recollection?
That led us to nowhere that made any impact on what we know today. Next.
This question might be for the chief. How long was the detective with the department before he started investigating this? And based on the policies and procedures that existed in 2004, did he violate any of them the way he handled the case?
Sergeant McCready was hired on February 28th of 2000. He went into investigations at around January of 2004. As far as the policies, I'll direct that to the chief.
Repeat the policy question, please.
Based on the policies that were in place that the township or the police department had, did he follow it correctly when investigating a CSC case like
Well, many of the policies back then were understandings that were not documented as far as policy was concerned. That has since changed. There were expectations of all investigators and common investigative techniques and processes didn't occur.
Chief, this question might be for you as well. I'm over here to the right. Nina with Channel 13 in Grand Rapids. As far as the way this was handled in 2004, do you guys feel at all responsible that this could have ended in 2004 and the number of victims, survivors rather, would not be the number that we have today?
You know, that would require us to speculate, obviously. And we're not here to speculate on what might have happened, but I can tell you that if that's the case, you don't know the sorrow we feel about that. We share in that. We've expressed that. But I can't speculate on what would have happened. I know there were many cases in the 90s. So I don't know. I don't want to degrade any case that's been before. I don't want to get into that. Each one is important. But to speculate on what might have happened if we'd done something in 2004, I just don't know. Next.
Hi, my name's Barbara Curtis. I'm a longtime resident of Meridian Township and also a longtime parent, grandparent, and foster parent. As a result of my advocacy work for young people, many young people come to me referred by former foster kids, grandkids. And I have a comment and a question. There's a great deal of abuse of children that is not being addressed. I can think of 2 cases the past 6 months where a young person thrown down the stairs, the police called the ambulance, but never followed up to see if that home was a safe place. Another instance I'm still involved with is a young person being locked out of her home in frigid weather, being beaten frequently, mothers using drugs, no follow-up. The adults are always believed in these instances, and my question is, what training is going to be given to officers to start believing these young people and encouraging safety for these young people, not just criminal sexual conduct cases, but all young people?
Well, first of all, most importantly, the first part of your question, Assistant Chief Plaga, you want to raise your hand? I would ask that you immediately come over and get with Assistant Chief Plaga and let's address those issues most importantly. Because I can tell you, I've been here almost 5 years. I personally have not received any other than this, any other concerns or complaints against our department involving CSCs. I take this personally. I appreciate your comments, and I want them to be followed up on. So I'd ask that you, as soon as we leave, get together with our administration, and let's figure that out. As far as what kind of training, we're going to do everything that it takes. We're going to bring in experts from the outside who come in, and I don't want to take away from, this is really important. But I also want to mention that we've had many successes when it comes to putting pedophiles away in this community. I go back to April 4th of 2015 when pedophile Joshua Harding approached 2 kids at the East Lawn Cemetery. Brian and Keenan from our department put him away. You may recall that case because the perpetrator attacked Brian Keenan in the courtroom. So this department has some great examples of what we've done in the community. But missing one is too many, and I hope that you'll get together and I hope that we can address those issues. There will be I take this personally. My daughter's in this room right now. And I'll tell you what, we are going to be the best. Good things are going to come out of this. Brianne, you talk about what we can do going forward. Brianne's going to help us. Brianne's agreed to partner with Sergeant McCready. We can't undo what happened in 2004. We can only be better because of it. And we're going to take all the steps necessary to make that happen. And I will hold everyone accountable to make sure that happens. And this board is going to hold me accountable. Next.
Over here. This question is for the chief as well. Sonia Mogi with CNN. Wanted to know if at any time when the department notified, or if the department notified MSU that it was looking into one of its employees about a complaint, and also have you received any other reports of Nassar? Did you at any time receive any other reports of Nassar to your police department, whether it was a 911 call or a report other than Brianne?
We did not contact MSU at the time. I believe that they didn't recognize the connection. That does not mean we would have contacted them, but we didn't make the contact. And your second question, I'm sorry. Yes, the answer to that question is during that period of time, no, not that we found. We don't anticipate to find any. We have had two calls, as I recall, two calls from victims who wanted to report information. That information was passed on to MSU Police Department, who were at that time doing all the investigations. So we passed that on for their information and investigation.
What year was that?
I think that we've had one as recently as within the last 2 or 3 weeks, someone that came forward and seeking help. And I don't have a date on the other one. Thank you.
Derek Cunningham with Fox 17 News out of Grand Rapids.
Hang on just a second, please. And that's exactly the question, is exactly why we're reviewing all CSC cases. And we started this in November. This is ongoing. We started in 2000, and we're reviewing 18 years of CSC cases just to address that very question. Go ahead, please.
Yes, what do you think would have made the difference in 2004 in that case? Was a licensed medical professional consulted? Is that customary in a situation like this? You're dealing with a doctor who, as I've heard today, you all were, I guess, fooled, so to speak. But what would have made the difference other than this doctor saying this is this procedure?
Well, there's many steps we could take. We were deceived and manipulated. We don't hide behind that. We don't hide behind anything that happened. We're taking full responsibility. But what could have, we should have done a number of things that we've mentioned. One of them would have been to consult another medical provider to go over what we had in front of us. But that's one thing we didn't do, and there's probably a lot of other things we could have done. And if we had to do over again, we would.
My question is for Brianne. Lindsay McCormick with Wood TV out of Grand Rapids. I'm wondering if knowing that the officer who handled this case back in 2004 is still on the force is something that you think about.
It's a difficult question because I am not as familiar with what should have been done and what was expected to be done at the time from him. I trust that Frank Walsh and Chief Hall will look into it and look into if there's any issues of misconduct by him. I hope that he's learned from this, and I hope that moving forward, they will take these more thoroughly.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, we're trying to fix that. Thank you. I hope you all heard the one word that Brianne used. I hope you heard she used the word trust. We've known each other for about 2 weeks. We've established trust. That's a key word. Because from everything else, we can build on that. We can become better together. Next.
My name is John Hewitt from WWJ Radio out of Detroit. Brianne, and also Mr. Walsh, to you. In covering this, a lot of people continue to say how he was able to deceive. I think a lot of people in a layperson sense, not involved with an athletic program, gymnastics program, are still confounded by that. How was he able to do this so egregiously in plain sight, if you will? Was it more enablement from others around him? Was it the fact of his medical excuse and procedure? To both of you, how was he able to carry this off for so long, appreciating this as one instance, one case?
I guess I'll go first, and then Brianne, because I'm sure Brianne has more expertise in this area, having gone through it. I can only speak. I've read the report in its entirety, including the PowerPoint and all of that. I watched 17 hours of video of the courtroom. Being in there is a whole different experience than sitting in your office watching it. All I can say is that in reviewing everything, he deceived our officer. He manipulated with his PowerPoint, and like many other people were deceived by Nassar. It doesn't make it right. And I'm not going to stand up here and try to make it right. It's clearly wrong. But I've looked at been here 18 years, and he's been a really good officer for us. I've been involved in solving some major crimes for us, and that doesn't make it right. But I'm also going to realize his 18 years of service here, and he made a bad judgment in September of 2004 that had significant impact on many people. But that's simple, exactly how I think it played out in reviewing everything. And I've also had several conversations with Sergeant McCready. I've talked to all the people involved. This is all I've done for the past several weeks. And it was time well spent. I don't know if you want to add, Brianne, to that.
Yeah. I think that Nasser was enabled by people around him. And I also think that he used the inherent trust that people had in him as a physician to abuse children. And unfortunately, this is very common with serial child molesters. Which is why we need to investigate thoroughly and not just, look at a PowerPoint presentation. That's not enough. We need to dig further into it to protect our children.
Quick follow-up, why isn't Sergeant McCready here today?
I think the most important thing that he could do was to understand the gravity of what happened, apologize to Brianne. He did that. He understands. And I know this is very difficult. It's very difficult on him too. And today our spokesperson of the department is Chief Hall. I made that decision. The most important thing is that he had that private conversation. If that hadn't happened, then you don't know how he feels. He feels extremely remorseful for what didn't happen in 2004.
Bilal Kurdi from Wood TV. You guys are apologizing. It seems sincere from the heart. And the years have gone by. What recompense is she going to get for therapy? Any monetary, any money is going to be forwarded to her? Anything that's substantial other than an apology?
An apology is not enough. I don't know. I don't know where that's going to end up. What we're here for today is to make this apology, not only another apology, but not only make it to Brianne, but to make it public. Because that's what, owning up to, I was raised, my mom's here, and I was raised that when you do something wrong, you own up to it. And that's why we're here.
Would you say be willing?
We've had some conversations about the legality of this. I don't really want to get into that today, but I feel we're in a good position. But I can tell you one thing, we will do the right thing. We will not hide behind any building, any station, any uniform. This township will do the right thing, but we're in a good place. As you know, we have trust already. There'll be continued trust, but Brianne knows we will do the right thing. And that comes from this township board. Their decision is to do the right thing, and that's why they're here.
Deja Green from Focal Point News. And talking to Sergeant McCready, did he ever express what made Nassar's story so believable?
what he has mentioned to me and the other officer who was involved, Bart Crane, what we've been told, what we understand, what we've read, what happened to many others, is that they brought him in, he went over this medical procedure, PowerPoint, stack of medical journals this high, and went over all of it, and he duped us. We were deceived by it, and we should have done a lot more. We'd be better off today if we had. We didn't. What we can do is place ourselves in a better place in the community by working with Brianne, establishing the trust that we have, and making the appropriate changes within the community and within our department, and what we can do.
Real quickly, forgive the language in this question, but if Sergeant McCready was here today, I think I'd ask him why he thinks massaging a woman's breasts for 10 to 15 minutes helps with back pain. And since he's not here, Chief, maybe you can address training. Is that going to include having more women involved with these investigations?
Well, that is actually, Becky Payne is standing behind you. Becky Payne does an outstanding job for us in handling CSC complaints. She's trained, she's thorough, and she's brought a lot of people to justice. And some of those, I think you all know the names in these rooms. We're fortunate to have you. The first part of the question, Jason, all I'm going to tell you is I'm not going to get into the real specifics of the report. We were wrong, we were deceived. That's why we're here. We want to make it right. We've built trust. And that's all we can do at this point. I can't rewind the tape. But I'll sure tell you, I will have a lot of input how the tape rolls forward.
Hi, Tiara Riddick with Home TV. Now, you're quoted on the Meridian Township website as saying, "We missed it," in regards to Brianne's report. How do you miss something like this?
Well, I think in many ways that question's been asked and answered. I've talked about the PowerPoint, I've talked about the medical journals, I've talked about how others were deceived. There's just no excuse for it. It just happened. It was a bad judgment call, and we're here because of it.
Hi, Elise, ABC 12 Flint. Quick question about the current cases that you're looking at. You said 18 years of CSC cases dating back to November. I want to know how many cases is that, and what is it that you all have found so far? Are you re-questioning people at this point? Have more people come forward to say, hey, you got this one wrong, can you take another look at my case?
Well, there's many ways. Okay, so what we're reviewing is from 2000 to 2018, 18 years of cases. We started in November. We started way before any of the trials started or anything like that. We are through 8 or 9 years of reports. And we're looking at, the first thing we looked for, are there any cases where anyone came in and talked about a doctor and his pedophile ways that we missed? That was the first and the most important thing. We found nothing. The second thing is that we're looking for any of them that didn't get sent to the county, that maybe if you look through those, and this is why it's taking a long time. Each one you read, you understand, is there something? We have not found any that need to be sent to the county. I'm not going to say that we won't, but we will continue to look. And I've directed the chief and the staff here to go through 18 years of reports. That's a lot of reports with CSC, and we're looking for, is there anything that we missed or some that should go to the county? And now we have a policy now where the chief has to sign off on all CSC cases.
Do you have a rough estimate as to how many reports that might be, or if anyone's come forward?
Very rough, approximately, I believe, it's around 30 to 35 a month, a year. Yeah. 356 right now that we've gone through, but I hope you understand the completeness of what it takes to go through one. And we've had 2 people working 12 hours a day on it for quite a long time. Next.
Shayna Roth with Michigan Public Radio. And I guess this question probably can be for all of you. Given that Meridian is one township in quite a large area, is there going to be some sort of working with other departments with your initiatives and things like that to make this more wide-reaching than just this area?
That's a great question, and Brianne and I and the chief have talked about that, how we want to become the model. for our region, the model for Michigan, and the model for this country. That's what I strive to get to. That's what we strive to get to as a community. That's what all of us are here for today. And that's going to take us some time. But this young lady right here is the person who can get us there. We've built trust. We have ideas to become better. We're going to partner together. And I think you'll see some good things come out, some wonderful things about what we do in the area of CSCs. And it won't be just Meridian Township. We want to set the bar high, and we're going to achieve it because it is personal. It's very personal.
Beth LeBlanc with the LSJ. You mentioned, I think, in your press release yesterday that you guys were alerted in September 2016 by MSU of your 2004 investigation. I guess, what did you mean by that? And then also, when you were investigating this, did you meet with Nasser on MSU grounds at all?
We were notified on September 16th of 2016, which I believe was a Friday. We were notified by Michigan State University that and I think the story had come out in the Indianapolis Star the week before, and they said they contacted us on that Friday and said, hey, you might have a case from 2004. You might want to send this to us. I think the email said there's 3 victims at this time. September 19th, the following Monday, we were notified by the Ingham County Prosecutor's Office, you're prohibited from releasing the report. I think the thing started to grow right away. And then furthermore, I think it was in January of 17 that the Michigan Attorney General's office said you're prohibited from release. And we understand why. We did not want to have any impact on the not being able to prosecute Nassar. So that's how it played out. And I don't believe I believe the investigation happened on our property between at that time, Officer McCready, Investigator McCready, and Nassar. I don't believe we were on MSU's property. No, not at all. And if we are, we welcome that and we'll all learn from that, but no. And that's one of the things when you get into this, there was no criminal intent. There was no cover up. If we could have, we would have released the report on September 19th of 2016. That would have been my marching orders to the police department. Don't hide, don't shield yourself. And you know what? That's what they would wanted to do. Would wanted to do. We have not wanted to hide behind this at all. But when you're told not to release something by the Attorney General's office, that's what you do.
Mr. Walsh, over to your right. Oh. My name is David Harns. I'm a member of the community. Just wanted to ask you a question. The FBI has a category for predators like Larry Nassar, and they call them pillars of the community. This pillar of the community hid behind a medical license to commit his crimes. The last pillar of the community that attracted this much attention nationwide hid behind a children's charity in Pennsylvania to commit his crimes. What are you going to do to take the lead in helping the next pillar of the community be exposed before he continues or she continues her crimes?
Well, I have to tell you, I'm not an expert in investigating, solving, or recognizing pedophiles. But what I am accustomed to is hiring experts who are going to come in here and work with us that the chief talked about, and we will leave no rock unturned, no leaf turned. We will go out and not only be reactive, we are going to be proactive. In this program that we're talking about starting, and we don't have all the details yet, we are going to make sure that we're a leader and we set the bar high and we are a model for the rest of the state and country going forward. We've learned a lot, and when you learn a lot, you get better. And that's what this is all about. And I can assure you that this community has my word, his word, and this township board that we're going to be better. And if they're out there, we're going to find them, and we'll bring them to justice.
Follow-up question to one asked a few minutes ago by Jason over Channel 4, and I'm directing this to the chief, please. Chief, what was your role in this department in '04? When did you first read the narrative in this report and the graphic detail that was outlined. Jason referred to massaging her breast for 10 to 15 minutes, and then it also addresses how he was massaging her, forgive me, crotch area for about 20 minutes, and I'm not going to go into the rest of the detail in this. But when did you first read this, and did this pass your muster when you read this, that this is a legitimate examination or treatment by a medical doctor?
I was interim police chief at the time, about a month and a half, 2 months. I read this report in September of 2016.
And when you read it, what ran through your mind when you saw that detail?
Sickening, disappointed. How did this happen? And we didn't do our best work.
Anyone else?
Tiara Riddick, Home TV. Brianne, this question is for you. How are you feeling today in regards to how the township is handling this now?
You know, with that, I the pain I've dealt with for 14 years, and it doesn't change the fact that hundreds of other young women and children were abused after my report in 2004. However, as I said, I really do appreciate the kindness and the support by Chief Hall and Frank Walsh. But it's still very difficult to comprehend what happened and read the report. It has been very difficult as well. I can't change what happened to me back then, but I can hopefully change the future for other victims.
Yeah, sure.
I want to make sure that I answered your question, that I was, did I answer your question? You asked about when I read the report. It was in September of 2016. Right. And my feelings at that time when I read it.
Right. Yes. Okay. But just to clarify, so you were the interim chief in 2004.
Yes.
And it was not departmental procedure at that time for you to review anything that looked and seemed strange.
It was not. That's why we've made the change right now.
Dave Hall took over as chief permanently on September 24th of 2016. 2004. September 26, 2004.
How long have you been in your position, Mr. Walsh?
May 8th, Wednesday, 2013.
I'm Paula Gardner from MLive. This apology is extraordinary from what I've seen over my many years of covering journalism or covering communities in Michigan. And I just want to drill down a little bit further into the relationship here. I want to make sure, is this part of any official settlement? Are there written guidelines to what you'd be discussing here today? And what advice did you get from your legal advisors on this apology?
There's quite a few questions in there. Well, no, it's not part of any kind of settlement. No one's told me what to say. I have no notes. I believe in being authentic and genuine and transparent. So there's not been any talks about any settlements. We've not discussed any lawsuits. And you know what? That's not even what's most important to me, to this board. I have not discussed lawsuits with any of the township board members who are the leaders of this township. We've not discussed it. We don't have counsel here. I don't need counsel here to tell me how to respond to something appropriately that went wrong. When an apology is in order, that's what comes first. Maybe people were saying you shouldn't have been contacting her before the sentence. We're going to do the right thing here. And there's been no discussions of legal action. If there's things that we can do for Brianne in the future, we will certainly do them. We will do the right thing. And if there were more than one survivor we were working with, we'd do the same thing. If we had 150 or 250, we'd be going out, we'd be visiting them, we'd get to know them. We would know her son's name. We would know her brother. We would know her mother. That's what this is all about. Everything else will follow its course. But it's all about the relationship that we have, that we all have. That's what's important to me. The legality, it'll follow. Could. In this case, it may not, but we'll do the right thing.
Based on that, any thought on how Michigan State has responded?
You know, I don't think it's appropriate for Meridian Township to talk about the response of another institution. All I can tell you is that our response is it has been and will continue to be into the future. It'll be working with Brianne, and she's going to really help us become better. And I have some other plans that will involve Brianne in the future of this township that I can't go into today. Everyone has to handle it the way they want to handle it and what they think is appropriate. But the first and foremost thing is the care of the survivor.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Make it clear that I have received nothing financially for this outside of the plane ticket. So what I'm saying today is genuine and not a result of any settlement.
And actually, the two of us were going to fly to Seattle on Saturday. So instead of two, we paid for one.
I understand that the detective was deceived, and you say this was missed here. And I understand that he also has done a lot of good for the department, as you said, for the last 18 years. But if you listen to any of the victim impact statements, the more than 150 that we've listened to, there's a lot of talk about accountability. And Frank, you mentioned too accountability. I know that this may be a difficult question to answer, but has the detective been held accountable, or will he? And if so, how?
I think he's been held accountable by the simple fact of what he's gone through and the sheer torment that he's gone through internally, knowing that he really missed this. I know Andrew, and I know what he's going through, and I know there's a lot of people who think he should be fired. I've had a number of people tell me that. But I look at something that, how can we make something better out of this? Instead of being punitive, how can we make something better out of what's happened? And you know what? Brianne came up with that idea, to work hand in hand with Andrew McCready and develop a program in the next year that helps us work with and alleviates CSC cases. And we're going to do that. And when we put it together, we're going to announce that. I don't see this as being punitive, and I know a lot of people want it to be. Hey, I've reviewed whether Chief Hall was going to continue as chief. I've reviewed whether the sergeant should remain on the force. And the answer is a clear yes to me, because I'm looking at the totality of their service to this township. And what we did was significant. What we missed is significant, but they're on our force, and they're going to be on our force, and they have my trust. And if in the future, hey, no one gets a free pass. I've terminated police officers in my career. No one gets a free pass. But in this case, they're going to remain on the force.
Alani Latang here with WILX in Lansing. Just a question, if you know at all, for either Chief or Mr. Walsh, when is that training going to start for officers? And if you can tell us how long that training is going to be, like the rigorous process of it, what's going to go into that training?
We actually haven't defined it yet because we want to work with Brianne on that. But I can tell you that it'll be an external as well as internal. I think Officer Payne back here with all of her training, and she's highly respected in this department, I think she could be a part of that training. I also think we need to find somebody, whether they're in Michigan or nationally, who's done this, who has provided that training to other departments. You know, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to get somebody, regardless of the cost, who can come in here and help us. And it's not saying that we don't know it's not that. It's how can we become better and what can we do? And we're going to work on that. It should start on March, and we have no timeline to it. If it takes us 3 or 4 months to get through, if it takes us the rest of 2018 because this is personal, and we're going to make it right, and we're going to make this a positive in this community. So whatever it takes, that's what we're going to do without a timeline.
Just to clarify, you said it starts in March?
It'll start in March.
Okay.
Yes.
This question is for the board. My understanding of the dynamics of the town is that Mr. Walsh sort of serves at the pleasure of the board, or you know, you guys get to weigh in on his decision making. He's decided that the chief and that Sergeant McCready should stay on staff, and I just wanted to hear from you guys if you agree with his decision for that to happen, knowing that, you know, a mistake was made. Both of those people were involved with that mistake. It's a public safety concern, and they're going to continue to serve.
Excuse me. I have a very weak voice because I've been fighting with a bout of pneumonia, but Ron Steicha, the supervisor, throughout this process, ever since this came to our attention, our manager has been open and constantly communicating with all the board members. He and I have consulted a lot on this, including on the issue of whether or not the chief and the sergeant should be here. We've talked it through very thoroughly, and I think I could speak for all of us that we 100% stand behind the manager and the chief and their decisions here.
Thank you. You should also know the structure of township government, the structure of city management, is that all personnel decisions rest with the manager. So I've made that decision. I appreciate the support of the board. Anyone else?
Just to clarify one last thing, Brianne, can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Jim with Channel 7 in Detroit again. Just to clarify your position, which you stated a few minutes ago, and with all due respect, so are you saying this apology is enough? You're not considering any civil litigation against this township for what they've done?
Not at this, but you know, today's just kind of focused on healing in the future. So it's not at this time, no.
I'm sorry, your answer didn't come through clearly. You froze for a second there with this Skype feed. Could you restate that again, please?
Not at this time. No.
Anyone else? Okay, I think that wraps it up. On behalf of the township, on behalf of the community, on behalf of our police department, I want to thank all of you for being here today. This has been very, very difficult on us. It's been very difficult for Brianne, and we're going to do everything we can going forward to make this right and have it come out to be a benefit to the community. And I want to thank you for your time.